Hello, welcome to iHeart Cooking. I'm registered dietitian Jennifer Stachler.
And I'm Chef Dugan Wetzel.
We are brought to you by Reid Health Community Benefits, WCTV, and RPNL. Today on this episode, we are going to be discussing Fresh Mex recipes. So on today's episode, we're going to be discussing Fresh Mex recipes. And one of the most popular, I feel like, Fresh Mex is burrito bowls.
Absolutely.
And we're actually going to do a burrito bowl, but instead of doing more of the, a lot of sodium or the rice, we're going to actually use quinoa instead. So then we're going to actually start with that one, then we'll kind of move into our next one, which is a Chipotle sweet potato taco with avocado cream or sauce on there.
Absolutely. Yeah, like Jennifer said, we're just substituting quinoa for rice. Same process. When you're cooking it, you're going to steam off some water, get it to a boil, and you're going to add your quinoa and let that cook. And then while that's cooking, we're going to move on to start our next recipe here.
And that's something that quinoa, we have worked with this in the past episodes as well. It's a ancient grain. Nice thing about quinoa, it's a complete protein, so it has all those amino acids just like you would see in a lot of animal proteins. So it's a great replacement of meat, which is going to help reduce saturated fats, which is going to make it heart healthy.
Absolutely. It's going to take about 15 minutes for the quinoa to really plump up. You're going to see the little white part start to show. That's when you know that it's ready to mix in with our other ingredients.
And we are doing the white quinoa. There are other colors as well. You can get the purple, the reds. You can get the mixed colors. Any of those are fine. All the nutrition is all the same in each color that you have.
Certainly.
So we'll kind of let that cook off, and now we're going to kind of switch over while the quinoa is cooking into our Chipotle sweet potato tacos.
Yes.
So we got a sweet potato here that we're
going to just slice up. I'm going to cut the two ends off. We are using a fresh sweet potato, so be careful. Make sure you're using a sharp knife. If you're using a dull knife, it's going to take a little bit of pressure, a little bit of force to get through there, so always make sure your knife's sharp. I went ahead and cut off the two ends, so I've got a flat surface to work with. You can use a vegetable peeler. You can use whatever you have at home. I'm just going to use this knife, and then I'm just going to run through it and take the skin off.
Nice thing about sweet potatoes is the color. That orange vibrant color has that beta carotene or carotenoids. You're looking at a lot of good nutrition there. We're looking at a lot of vitamin A, and we know vitamin A is always good for our eyes along with other parts of our body as well. Nice thing about this is I love sweet potatoes. If I had to choose one, I'd choose sweet potatoes in the house. My husband actually doesn't like sweet potatoes. My daughter loves them, so most dishes, we tend to use a lot of sweet potatoes more than other regular potatoes.
That's a good thing. Okay, so now we've got all the skin off. I'll go ahead and get rid of that real quick. Next step, you're just going to dice it. Small dice. Actually, I guess it really depends on how much you like sweet potato. If you're trying this for the first time and you're not really sure, you can always cut these into smaller pieces. One, they'll cook faster in the oven. And two, you're not going to get that prominent sweet potato flavor that you're looking for if you're a big sweet potato fan. So if you are a big fan, you can cut them a little bigger. Just be ready that it's going to take a little bit longer to cook in the oven. So we're just going to go about a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch dice here. Very easy cut. Just run through them all.
And with
Being careful.
Yeah, with this recipe, you want a relatively larger size sweet potato. You can do anywhere from about 2 to 3 cups, depending again on your preference for them as well.
Just real fast. Finish cutting these.
So while Dugan's kind of cutting the rest of that up, we do have the oven set at 425 degrees that we're going to actually put these on the sheet with parchment paper and actually cook them to get them soft.
They're going to just go straight into a pan. And we're going to add just a little bit of spices to it. Cumin, some cayenne, a little bit of oil. We're using an olive oil here. With the temperature being at 400 degrees, the olive oil will get a little darker. It's one of those that's about the breaking point for olive oil. But it's nice with this because we're using smaller pieces of sweet potato. So those corners are going to get good and dark. They're going to have kind of a crispier texture to them while the inside stays really soft. So if you're a texture eater like myself, this is a really good thing to do, because then even though you're getting the soft sweet potato, you're still getting those caramelized corners that are going to have a contrast in texture for you. So we're going to go ahead. You can use an oil for this, or we're actually going to show you another way to do it. It's a cooking spray made from soybean oil. You just lightly coat your vegetables here. You get that moisture that you're needing, and then you just add your spices. Toss it together.
Nice thing about using that spray, you can actually watch how much you're putting on there, and you're cutting back on the amount of oil added in there, which is going to, yes, oils have good fats in there, but it's going to help cut out those calories. So if you're looking at something to kind of shave a few calories off a recipe, adding a little bit of the spray is actually a good choice to do.
Certainly, yeah. All right, so now that that's all tossed and coated, it's going to go straight into the oven. Check in about 15-20 minutes, depending on how big chunks that you've made, and then we'll move on with our recipe.
So our quinoa is finished. We can see that the quinoa has all that liquid absorbed that kind of expanded out a little bit. So we're going to move on to the next step of that burrito bowl.
Next step is actually just going to be making the dressing. A little bit of lime, olive oil, and some spices, some cumin, some chili powder. Really simple, just blending it together, and it's going to be ready to go over the quinoa.
Yep.
So.
They recommend, there is cayenne pepper in that as well. You can use a little bit or you can use a lot depending on your heat palette. It's definitely towards your preference.
So we've added a combination here of oil and the liquid of the lime juice, and you know that they just don't mix together. You've heard in other episodes that we've done, they don't like to play nice together. So what you got to do is really whisk hard, or put it in a blender of some kind. Make sure that it emulsifies and combines the two together, and that's going to help you keep it together so it doesn't separate. Just whisking it really quickly. So that's what we're going to do right here.
I say I've put it in a bowl jar, put a lid on it, and actually shaken it before as well. Just so I don't have to sit there and kind of whisk it the whole time.
Okay. So now that that's together, we're going to go ahead and add all of our spices in here. Gives it that nice dark amber color. That color, that smell that I'm getting out of this just reminds me of the southwestern type foods here that we're accustomed to. So.
Yeah, especially that cumin. That's one that I really like in a lot of my dishes. I tend to always add a little bit more of that just because I prefer that flavor in my dishes. So again, you could possibly do that as well if you'd like.
We're going to go ahead and pull the quinoa off heat and kind of just fluff it up just a little bit. Let it sit for a couple more minutes to absorb anything that's left over in here. And while we're waiting, we're going to check on our sweet potatoes in the oven. So, good and hot, nice and caramelized. You can see all the dark spots in there. The middles are still going to be really soft and tender. This is almost perfect here. Let's go ahead and put that on there. The next step in this recipe is actually to add the black beans and then put them back in the oven. So we're going to go ahead and just do that, just over the top. It's a low sodium black bean. Don't worry about it sizzling. You know, it just came out of a 400-degree oven, so it's really all right. And so.
One thing I also like to do with some of my black beans is, even though it says low sodium, you can also actually find some that have no salt added anymore. I still like to drain them, put them in a colander in the sink, and put water over them just to get more of that sodium out of there as much as I can.
Absolutely. So we'll check our quinoa here. Looking pretty dry, looking ready to assemble. So all we're gonna do, this is very simple. We're gonna put everything in a bowl and kind of toss in the vinaigrette that we made, and it'll be ready to go.
Yeah, then we start adding all the other vegetables and you got your burrito bowl in there.
Certainly. So we're just gonna go ahead, add our quinoa.
Because of a lot of the flavors you're adding, like we added the cayenne, the cumin, a lot of those Southern Mexican kind of spices we think of. We didn't add salt. We're going to get some sodium and some of the other things, not quite much. And that's one thing I like about this. It's a quick burrito bowl. Kind of reminds you of those hothead burritos, those Chipotles, but you're adding, less of the sodium aspect, because that's something you can actually add up those pretty quickly when you go get those made at those places.
Yeah, certainly. So we're just going to toss it around a little bit. Make sure it's all incorporated in that dressing. And then we're gonna just add our ingredients. And like you said, it's just like those places that you go and you kind of pick what you want in there. You can do that with this.
Absolutely.
Very, very simple. We've got some red onions, some tomatoes, some low sodium black beans, some corn. We've got diced chicken, jalapenos, cilantro. The list goes on and on. You can really add whatever you want to this, and it's...
Think about some of those places you go to get burrito bowls, and think about some of their ingredients, and you can use just a similar one. So if you didn't want the chicken, you could use the steak, you could use the pork, anything that they have an option of as well.
Right.
The nice thing about it is that quinoa, though, again, we're replacing that rice dish, getting another complete protein. You really don't have to add any, animal source protein in there, because you're getting a complete protein with the quinoa, but also protein actually with these black beans right here as well.
Mm-hmm. Another nice thing you can do, sour cream. Instead of actually using sour cream, you can get like a low-fat Greek yogurt and put that over the top. It'll still give you that bite, that tang that you're looking for from sour cream, but still you're looking a lot healthier for it.
Absolutely.
Almost done. Just adding a little bit of jalapeno on here, not very much. A little bit of white onion. If you don't like white onions, you can use yellow onions. You can use the red onion if you really like that bite. Raw, nothing's better than a raw red onion.
Yeah.
So that's always an option as well. And then we're just going to top it off with some cilantro. And then that's ready to serve, really.
Absolutely. So it's all put together and ready to eat. So we're kind of put that off to the side, kind of let some of the flavors infuse in with the quinoa while we kind of finish this Chipotle sweet potato taco there.
Absolutely.
It's pretty. So our sweet potatoes and black beans are done. We're going to take those out of the oven. We're going to start completing the rest of that sweet potato taco dish.
So as you can see, we put the black beans on the plate here. They're nice and dry from sitting in the strainer and just getting all that excess sodium off of there. Throw them in the oven for 10 minutes. The skins start to pop and open up. The bean, that's going to be a nice texture change from the sweet potato. It's going to have a nice crunch to it. So we're going to move on to our next step. Taking a red cabbage, kind of slicing it real thin, just as a topper. We're going to throw some apple cider vinegar and some other stuff with it.
Absolutely. Gives it a nice color too, because you got that purple cabbage. Going to play off the dark color of the beans, the orange of the sweet potatoes.
Absolutely.
And then especially when we get that avocado cream that we're going to be preparing here in a little bit as well. And it gets at that crunch, which this is a lot of soft stuff, so you get that kind of crunching within that taco.
Absolutely. It's going to have a nice texture. It's nice and purple. It's got some whites in there just to change some things up a little bit. Just going to add it into our bowl. Cut off a little bit more here. Just gonna go right in. Then, like I said, we're gonna add a couple more ingredients. We're doing some apple cider vinegar, give that nice little bite to it.
Absolutely.
A little bit of lime juice and some lemon juice.
Get that sweetness.
And then we're just gonna toss it together. So put some gloves on here and toss away. And it really wouldn't hurt to let this sit in here for a little bit, kind of absorb those flavors. You're not going to lose the crunch that you're looking for so quickly because it's such a firm head to it, cabbage
Absolutely.
does. So you're really not going to hurt anything by letting this sit for a little bit. So that step's ready. We're going to move on to our next part, which is the avocado cream.
So we got some avocados here we're gonna cut up and actually put into the blender. Basically for the cream, we're gonna just put all of the ingredients into the blender and let the blender do the work. I mean, the most you're gonna have to do is cut these up. So that's something we'll kind of show you how to cut these up.
Sure.
The nice thing about avocados, they're great for good fats. So you got a lot of your mono and polyunsaturated fats, very healthy. They are a little bit higher in calories because they are, have a lot of good fats there, but great choice in that. And it's gonna be a nice texture change as well because when you get into the taco, you have your shell, you have your black beans and sweet potatoes, then you get your cabbage that gets you the crunch, then you have this nice creamy sauce on top.
So cutting an avocado. Some people are kind of intimidated by it, but there's really, I promise you, nothing to be afraid of. Just, again, nice sharp knife. It's got a semi-hard shell on it, but it's really thin and easy to get into. You just slice down, and you'll notice you get stopped. There's a giant seed in there. Again, all you're gonna do is make sure you got pressure on it, holding the avocado and the knife really well. You can just roll it. Just slide it down the knife, continue to roll it until you reach the other side, and you've cut through all the way to the shell, or through the seed. And this is what you're left with. A couple ways you can do this. You can get a spoon and scoop out the seed if you want, but if you're looking to make a nice appearance for it, or if you're slicing it for sandwiches and you're trying to make it look good, you just take your knife, probably more towards the end, stab down in it like that, and it goes straight into the seed, and you just twist. And that'll pop right out, and you've got your clean entry, clean piece of avocado here. Next step, we just insert a spoon around the shell. It's like we said, it's a very thin shell, so it's very easy to get under there and pop the avocado out.
So yeah, nice presentation when you do it like this. That's something that even on top of this, you could probably even put slices of avocado on the finishing product if you like the just that texture of it. Since you're going to have the cream sauce, you could actually put some chunks of that and slices on top.
Absolutely.
For this recipe, that's something that if you don't feel comfortable and you just want to take a spoon to kind of dig it out, that's something you can do as well. If you don't want to do like Dugan showed you, kind of take the knife to get that seed out, because everything's going to go in here and get blended up as well.
Yeah, it's really not that important in this recipe. Another nice thing too is these shells of the avocado are perfect for entertaining, salsas and things like that.
Yep.
You just fill the shell back up with them, and
back in there.
yeah, it's easy to store dip. Impress your friends too. So
You could actually use this for the burrito bowl.
yeah, you really could.
Little individual servings as well, kind of using both of these ingredient recipes as at the same time, and
Absolutely.
kind of make it unique there.
Okay, so yeah, like Jennifer said, this is all getting blended up. So we're just going to slice it. Doesn't have to be perfect cuts, just chunks, easy enough to grab onto and blend evenly with the rest of the ingredients. So just a real quick chop of everything. Let's see there.
I like this cream sauce with this recipe, especially if you've never had avocados before, because they do have a different texture to that. So if you're a little hesitant about the actual avocado, this would be a great, kind kind of way to introduce yourself to it, because it's already mixed in with other ingredients. You're going to have it on top of it, where if you just eat this like this, I mean, there is a different texture there.
There really is, yeah. So we'll just finish that. Put another glove on so I can use my hands.
Two limes and 1 lemon, right? Lime and lemon juice.
Yes.
Okay. So we're putting this avocado into the blender, and then we're going to add the rest of the ingredients as well. So we're going to be adding 2 limes and 1 lemon, actually, from the juice of each. So you're getting a little citrusy taste there. And then we're going to be adding some onions to this, some garlic. We're going to be adding some jalapenos to it. So again, as your preference and how much you like, you can add a whole one, you can add half, whatever your preference is, and also some cilantro. And then we're just going to blend it all together, and it will be done. It's all blended together. That's something you can still have chunks of avocado in there. Again, to a preference. You got some different textures within there. You got the creamy, you got the chunks in there. And it's complete, and now we can assemble our tacos.
Absolutely.
So we're gonna finish these recipes by just assembling and then trying them. So we'll finish assembling the sweet potato tacos here.
Certainly.
So we got a tortilla shell that we're adding in here, so it's going to be more like a hard, soft taco. And the base is going to be those sweet potatoes and black beans. Add those in there. Those are going to be the base. Then we're going to add a little bit of that cabbage.
Oh yeah, the cabbage. Okay.
And you can see we're starting to get different colors in there, so different textures all together. You can smell that kind of citrus-y of the cabbage that are mixed in there as it sat there a little bit. Then we're going to add the sauce on top.
If you don't want to just dollop anything on, like if you're a little hesitant, like if you're trying avocado for the first time, if you're unsure, an easy thing to do would be to pipe it onto the taco. If you don't have a piping bag at home, Ziploc bags, obviously this is a very large Ziploc bag, but you can use much smaller, like the snack size bags, and just scoop your avocado cream into it. Get it down there at the bottom. Very easy. Kind of press all that air out, move it down there towards the bottom, and just cut that corner. And it's ready. You just over the top, really simple, straight across it, that way you can control it. And it's ready to go.
It's complete. As you can see, it's a nice contrast with the tortilla shell, the cabbage, the orange and the black beans underneath, and then the green on top. A lot of different colors there, a lot of different textures. I can't wait to try that one.
Absolutely.
We're gonna finish our burrito bowl as well. Since we're gonna, since we had these nice avocado shells, we're actually gonna use them in this recipe to kind of get some more of that presentation, where you can actually take the shell, take your burrito bowl mix and put it right in there for a nice little presentation there. You could also use, if you're not making both these recipes at the same time, that's something you can also make guacamole to put on top of this, where you have the avocados with the guacamole. Or you can actually add chunks of avocado on top of this as a texture and a different color as well. So very versatile in everything you use in the kitchen. So
Absolutely.
that's something that we'll clean things up and actually give these a try here. So we have our 2 complete dishes here, and we'll give them a try, and Really excited about these little nifty bowls here. Want to make sure I get a little bit of chicken, the quinoa, a little bit of every rest kind of ingredient in there. That is packed full of flavor. It hit me with the citrus. Then you get the different textures of the quinoa, the chicken, and some of the spices in there like the cumin and the cilantro. So, wow, that's a lot of flavor right there. I love that.
It's actually kind of the exact same thing that I experienced with this. Is you get the citrus from the red cabbage when it first hits your tongue. Then you get kind of that smokiness from the flavor on the sweet potatoes. Had a little bit of cayenne, so you get that in the back of your mouth. Overall, just really good. I'm not missing meat in this at all. So it's just a really good recipe.
Nice put together. I think some of these together would be nice too, because you're getting two different kind of complete proteins. Not a lot at the serving sizes here. Reminds me of summer a lot too because of those citrus tastes. So try them at home. See what you think of these Fresh Mex recipes, and hopefully you enjoy them as well. Thanks for joining us today on iHeart Cooking. We hope you enjoyed all these recipes that we did with Fresh Mex.
And if you'd like more recipes like today, you can visit reidhealth.org/iHeartCooking.
We'll see you next month.